Hi, hello, welcome back. Episode 3 of us talking.
This is a bad idea podcast. Yay!
Woo! This one is definitely not going to be a part 2 to the historic haunts. We're still kind of researching some stuff. So therefore we are going to do something a little different. This one's going to be on axe murders.
The best kind. No. We're 5 seconds in, I'm already in trouble.
We picked some pretty gruesome ones, so I think this is going to be quite interesting. I can't wait.
And honestly, I think these are all pretty well known too. I don't think anybody's going to be like, "What? That happened?"
Yes,
you're getting some very basic bitch axe murders here. Okay.
Yes, definitely. This is I think I'm pretty actually excited on this one. There's quite a bit of stuff to go over, but I'm definitely gonna let Randy here go first. No, I'm gonna go first.
Wait, I'm like, wait, am I going first?
Short-term memory loss. Don't.
I went first last time. It's your turn.
That sounds really awkward. What?
What? Why is it awkward?
I don't know. That's what he said.
Uh,
Sorry if you do somehow end up hearing my phone in the background. I do apologize. New phone. I don't know how to use it.
New phone. Who dis?
Who dis? Who dat? If you hear any rattling of ice, it's obviously my drink, so I do apologize. Right now there's a storm going over me, so if you do hear rain or thunder, it just adds to the
aesthetic.
I don't know. Aesthetic. Yeah, I can't think of the word.
Oh, also, you might hear random tapping noises. That is not a ghost. That is me using my iPad. I'm actually inking my comic while we talk about these things because I multitask, ho.
I got this time I have everything on the computer, so if you hear clicks and taps, it's just me. But all right, so I'm gonna just kind of hit the ground running here. So the first one, the one I'm rolling with, is the Hinterkaifeck murders, which obviously, if you can't tell by the name, it was in Germany. So we're gonna travel all the way to Weidenhofen, Bavaria, Germany. We're gonna go back.
That just made me so happy. Weidenhofen?
Weidenhofen.
Oh my gosh.
Weidenhofen, not Weidenhofen. Weidenhofen.
Oh,
Weidenhofen
there's no N.
is the
Okay,
thing.
Weidenhofen.
Yeah.
I don't know why that makes me so happy. I love Germany. I swear.
Took 4 years of German and I can't even read what I just typed. So we're going to go back to the time of March 31st, 1922. So it's not too far back, but about 100 years. On the site in a small Bavarian farmstead, there lived 6 people, a husband and a wife, their widowed daughter, her 2 children, and the maid. But just somewhat before all this happened, there were strange happenings around the farmstead leading up to that dreadful night. 6 months before the attack, the other maid had quit. Her reasons for leaving was because of the strange sounds in the attic. She believed the house was haunted.
I know.
But,
she's like, this bitch is haunted. I am out.
Yeah, and she even reported it, and the police were like, okay, there's nothing there, so
can you
we don't know what you're talking
imagine
about.
you're able to do that? Like, you're able to call the 911, do boop, boop, boop. Like, 911, I have an emergency, my house is haunted, what the fuck? Like,
and they actually look into it for you.
It's amazing. Oh, I love that.
But back then, I guess they didn't really think about that. She said that, obviously, like I said, there was a strange sounds in the attic. She had thought it was haunted. Andreas Gruber was the man who owned the farm. That was the husband. He noticed that one day his newspaper was missing, and nobody else subscribes to the newspaper. So he thought it was really odd that it was just like missing. He found like fresh tracks in the snow leading to a broken door to his machine room, which was like another barn for, where they process stuff. Later that night, he heard footsteps in the attic, so Gruber went looking around to find out where the noise was coming from, but nothing turned up. Like, he couldn't find anything, nothing knocked over. it looked like nobody really broke in, but, you know, he kind of was like, all right, it's a little odd, but, you know, he ain't gonna do much about it.
Yeah, I do remember, like, reading at some point that he was actually pretty spooked that maybe the maid was right and that something was going on.
Yeah, like, in the back of his head, he, like, really thought, like, okay, something's really weird, oh, you know, but he's not 100% sure on that. Oh, there's stars.
Hello, Dodge.
He told several people about the weird occurrences, and even the police, but no one seemed to believe him. The police were just like, okay, well, the maid said something, we already looked, you guys are fine, like, nothing is there. So, I would be kind of pissed off. Like, the maid was one thing, but this guy owned the property. You know, he said all this stuff was happening, and nobody believed him.
However, due to the family's reputation in the area, I'm gonna vouch devil's advocate here and be like, okay, well, maybe they just didn't believe him because they thought he was kind of crazy anyway.
Yeah, and so I'm sugarcoating the story because, well, obviously we will go into further weirdness of this all. It says a friend of the granddaughter's, where she went to school, believed that the daughter's mom was, like, wandering off in the night. So this was Gruber's daughter, obviously. After a supposed fight.
She just, like, wandered off. It's fine.
Yeah, like the reason why there was, like, all this stuff happening in the farm is in the middle of the night was because the daughter was mad. And then the whole family was like, hey, we saw a strange man with a mustache standing over near the forest line of their property just watching them. Okay, 1, that is super creepy. 2, why didn't you just go over to him and ask him why he was there? Like, they didn't want to go talk to him.
Okay, again, no. I'm going to be like, yeah, no, that's going to be a no from me, dog.
Like, come on. There's 6 of you. Well, yes, sorry. There's 5 of you at the time. You all could have gone as a group, like, brush up on him like a fucking gang. Like, hey, motherfucker, like, what are you doing up in here? This is my house, bitch.
I like how you say it like a group of girls at a bar. Like, we're all a team. We're all a unit. Let's go.
Oh my god, you have to go pee? Let's all go pee. Yeah!
I'm
like,
just,
what?
Oh, okay. But I agree though. Like, if I looked out in my backyard right now and I just saw some dude chilling back there smoking a cigarette, I'm calling the police. Like, I am not dealing with that today.
Like, why would? And it's 1922, so you know, come on, it's a little weird. Like, okay, so now we're gonna go back to the night where everything went down. And I'm gonna let you know from looking at my typing, you can tell how dyslexic I am because a lot of the letters are now mixed around. On the afternoon of March 31st, it was a Friday, none other, the family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had arrived. Now, Maria's sister dropped her off at the farm and is led to believe that Maria's sister was the last one to see everyone alive and well. And so later that evening, the Gruber's daughter and her daughter and Mr. and Mrs. Gruber all were lured into the family stable barn one at a time, where they think one perpetrator or multiple, no one actually knows, used a mattock, and if you don't know what that is, it's similar to a pickaxe, was killed each family member as they came in, striking them in the head.
Which, can I break in and say how awkward I think that has to be? Like, in a murder sense, like, what was it? Like, one person left and they were like, oh, you know, he's been gone for a minute. I'm gonna go. And did they not, like, could they not hear anybody scream, like, or anything?
Well, if it was a stable barn, and that's kind of went back to like what the police had thought of, is because of the actual animals and stuff like that, with all the noise, like, sometimes, you know, cows and stuff, you know, they're really loud. They can be very loud, especially when you're around them. So it would kind of like hide the screams or whatever. But you figure if he struck him in the head immediately, there probably wasn't much screaming.
And
pretty
they
much
were probably
all
knocked
died
out. Or dead.
Yeah, pretty
or
much
dead
they
instantly, which you would hope, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, so they assumed everyone just died on first impact of being hit. So this mysterious killer or killers moved to the house using the same mattock and killed the Gruber's grandson that was in his bassinet and the new maid who just arrived earlier that day. she just died. Like, that sucks.
Yeah, can you imagine? Days. New job sucks. Got murdered on day one.
You think she just sat there, like, haunting the house, like, man, I knew I shouldn't have came today.
She's like, I freaking knew it. Like, freaking Bethany told me, like, every day, don't work there. There's something
can you only imagine if she actually had showed up the next, on that Saturday instead of the Friday?
Well, I'm just saying, she would have discovered. Like, the maid, that maid did not just, like, go away. She told everybody in that damn town, like, that house is jacked up. I don't know what's going on there. It's haunted. I told the police.
And, yeah, nobody, like, really thought of it. So
if I were that other maid, I'd been like, I ain't taking that job. Fight me.
So this is, like, where this irritates me. And we're going to go through the 4 days leading up before people actually discovered that everyone was murdered there. Okay.
Wait, how long?
It took 4 days to find the bodies.
That's right. Oh my God.
And this is all the people who could have found out, but nobody actually truly looked through the barn or anything. So, April 1st, the day after it happened, the coffee salesman showed up and knocked numerous times on the door, kind of looked around, but didn't, like, go into anything. They actually noticed a barn door open, but they didn't go over to it and just assumed that they weren't home, they were just busy or whatever, so they just left, right? The school knows that the little girl had...
That one I get. That one I understand. Coffee salesman did not want to be involved.
But these guys... Yeah, well, I mean, like, they had, I guess, sold to him numerous times, but there's like, okay, they're probably out working in a field or something.
He was familiar with them?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, yes. Never mind, coffee salesman. What the hell? Come on. You don't think it's weird that they're not there? Come on.
And then the school knows, so the school knows that the little girl hadn't been there in a few days, or, hadn't been there like that Friday or whatever, or Saturday, I don't know. And that there was no excuse given. The church knows that they didn't show up for service like that Sunday, and they're like, okay, it's kind of weird, but whatever, they just might be busy. So now we're going to jump to...
Everybody in this town avoided these people. It's amazing.
Yes. And then on April 3rd, the mailman named Joseph Mayer was delivering mail to the Hinder Kaifek farmstead and noticed that the Saturday's mail hadn't been picked up. So side note. So still, all these people noticed that this family hasn't been around and didn't think to, one, report it to the police, or two, make sure that something, I don't know, like, bad happened to them, Like, it's kind of weird.
Into it. I'm sure you'll go more into it, but like I said, the family didn't have a great reputation either. So maybe everybody was just like, they're just being them, I guess.
So I'm still kind of sugarcoating it for you guys at first. So April 4th, a man named Albert Hoffner showed up to make repairs to the family's food chopper on their farm. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but you can always Google it. I'm not going to explain it. He waited for an hour for the family and noticed that it was kind of weird, like, no one was around. So he was like, okay, after a whole hour, he's like, fuck it, I'm just going to make the repairs anyways. But wouldn't you want to make sure they were there so you got paid? Like, I'm just saying, like, you're like, no, we'll just do it.
No, apparently he was just down for doing favors.
I guess. So it took Mr. Hoffner 4.5 hours to make the repairs, and still nobody showed up, okay? So nobody showed up still, so now you've been there a total
he's not getting paid.
And so now you've been there a total of 5.5 hours. You did your job, and he leaves. He goes back into town and tells, like, locals, like, he did the work up there, but he thought it was odd that, like, no one seems to be there and no one was around. And so around 3:30 that evening on April 4th, one of the locals named Lorenz Schlittenbauer sent his son and his stepson over to the farm to see if anyone's home, if the family is there. But the boys came back and said they didn't see anyone. So necessarily, they didn't actually look around. They just kind of show up and were like, I don't see anybody. All right, let's just go home.
That's amazing.
And
we know why they're not police.
Yes, I hope they didn't go into that field. So Lorenz goes himself. Fuck it, his kids are idiots. And brings two other guys with him and to find out, like, what was going on. the men arrived and went through the barns and the home, and they finally discovered the bodies. Okay, so 4 fucking days later, someone actually went and looked in the damn barn.
4
with
days
the barn door
of
open.
people coming and going just willy-nilly, and that's what's funny about like Hinterkaifeck. Well, not funny, but like weird about it is that, and you'll hear this evidence probably in a minute, but you know, they suspect that the killer was there quite a while.
Yes. So, after the head inspector of the Munich Police Department and his men went through looking for evidence and a number of people who had interacted with the farm in between the death and to when they came there, they didn't find much. But here's the thing, is that back then, I guess Germany had did a little differently. They actually conducted the autopsy in the barn where they found the bodies on site. They didn't take them back or anything like that. They just did them straight up right then and there. So they cut these people open and all that shit right there in the barn. So, okay, so now they determined that the Matic was the murder weapon. I think they just saw it missing or whatever, but they were able to kind of, I think, figure out from the cut, because it's, like I said, similar to a pickaxe, but it's like a little flat.
Which is interesting, because that means that the killer didn't bring a murder weapon.
Yeah, he just, I don't know, he was a psycho. They also figured out the little girl was alive hours after she'd been struck in the head. She just couldn't move.
Yeah.
So everyone else was dead, but she wasn't. But I think she was kind of partially, I don't know, like brain dead or something, maybe from the strike. I have no idea.
It could have like severed part of her spine or something.
Yeah, like, or hit,
where
like,
she was like,
nerve.
paralyzed almost.
And then it says on April 8th, the family was finally, and the maid was laid to rest. So after 4 days,
the maid.
And the maid.
I'm sorry. That just like threw me. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at the murders, you guys. I swear. I'm like, it's more just like the family and the maid. You guys, like, put it as a footnote. Like, this poor lady, man. She's just forever tied to this family because of taking a job and being there not even a full day.
Hashtag RIP Maria.
I feel so bad for you, man. I'm sorry.
So, they assumed the murders happened due to, like, they thought they were going to be robbed, but they found a large amount of cash in the home, and it wasn't, like, really hidden. It was just sitting there, but they didn't take it. So, what they could tell is that the perpetrator, again, or perpetrators, from what they could tell, remained on the farm for a few days because they even fed the cattle. They ate up most of the bread, and they cut fresh meat and all that. So they could tell that they had lived there. While all these other people passed by, assuming nobody was home. But yet, they said the neighbors saw smoke from the chimneys all weekend long.
Again, though, bonkers. It's bonkers, because that means somebody was there for God knows how long. Like...
Yeah, like, okay, so...
Like the coffee salesman, for instance. That guy's lucky.
Yeah, like, they knocked on the door. I guess the guys just went and hid, like, you know, it's like little kids, you know, hiding in the house, like, oh, I hope they don't see me.
Yeah, like, what the fuck?
But it was really odd, and, like, even the police went through, like, a list of suspects and repeat offenders. No one was ever convicted of the killings. The files on the murders were finally closed in 1955. But oddly enough, the last time anyone was interrogated was in 1986. It was...
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
Yeah, okay, so it was the Kriminalhauptkommissar, which is Detective Chief Inspector. I'm a Kommissar. I can't remember how to say that last part. It's been a while since I've spoke a lot of German. Mr. Mueller, I'll call him, who retired not long after. So he was like one of the last people that really knew of or was invested into trying to find the murderers. So he was still working on it up until he retired. So I'll give him credit. He was trying. They said over 100 people were suspected and questioned, but nothing ever made the police take further action. So that's crazy. Like, all that happened. All those people interacted, had passed or been on the property, but no one further looked. Everyone, like, noticed the barn door was open, but nobody went to the barn door. Like, if you were there to do a job, when you want to say, hey, just let you know I'm here so I don't startle you.
Yeah,
no,
and I did the job. Pay me.
Yeah, and it was just...
Unless you were paid before the fact, but I don't imagine that would be something, you know...
They did back then.
Well, and like I said, thinking about Andreas as a person, I don't think he was the kind of person that would just pay somebody out of, like, goodwill, thinking, like, oh, yeah, no, they're going to come and totally do this work. He was just not this kind of person.
Yeah, and so I haven't looked yet, but I'm going to, and if I do find them, I'm going to plug them in on the video. It says that there were only 5 pictures ever taken of the crime scene.
Oh.
That was it.
Awesome.
All that. 5 pictures. So I wonder if, like, do you think it could have been, like, a police officer? I don't know.
Now, from what I understand, though, like, none of these photos are autopsy photos. So, like, we don't even have that to go off of.
Yeah, it was, like, I don't know. It was just crazy because they didn't... Why would you have not taken more photos knowing it could have been, you know, it could have helped? I don't know.
Yeah, it could have been, like, important to your case.
It said the only 5 pictures taken of the crime scene were the 2 bodies in the barn, were 2 with the bodies in the barn, one of the dead maid in her chamber, and one of Joseph's wrecked bassinet and Victoria's bedroom, which was the daughter of Gruber, and outside view of the yard. No fingerprints were secured, and whatnot. So
oh, why would
they didn't really? They did, like, the worst kind of investigation ever. Honestly,
it was like the most low effort investigation.
It says many people came forward later on about those days leading up to the discovery of the bodies and said that there were a lot of strange things happening, but no one decided to really act on it. Like, people were talking about, like, oh, yeah, I passed by, like, at 3 a.m. The next, like, April 1st, 3 a.m., a farmer and he was a farmer and a butcher. He was on his way home and saw the 2 unknown figures. They saw 2 people there, he said. And the stranger saw them, and they turned around so their faces couldn't be seen. So he saw something weird and didn't act on it. And then he later heard about the murders, and he thought possibly it was the strangers might be involved. Like...
Oh, really?
So you know that they didn't belong there. You've passed by it numerous times, and you were just like, fuck it. They could be anybody. Like, you don't find that weird?
I mean,
like,
I find everything weird. Honestly. With Henrik Kaipik, you have to.
Yeah.
You can't let anything slide in this dang case. Like, is what I'm saying.
I mean, people, like, okay, so they worked on this case forever. You know, and it was just like, it was just a very messy investigation. The murders obviously were very gruesome and very sad. But there's so many holes missing on what, like, I think happened. And so many kinds of suspects, because online there's, like, a list of, like, main suspects I thought were probably the best possible, like, things, like, people who could have done it. And it's just crazy, though. You know, and the guy who discovered the bodies, Lorenz, and the guys that he took with him, they think Lorenz was possibly one of the murderers, though.
Which is like, eh.
Because he was supposedly had a relationship with Gruber's daughter, Victoria, and was the father of Joseph.
Oh, yeah, the baby that was murdered. The son that nobody really knows who fathered him, which...
Well... But they said on Joseph's birth certificate, the initials LS were under father.
Yeah. Which...
So, he was a possible suspect, which I think was kind of weird, because why would you kill the baby? Like, I don't... That's just...
Yeah, that's the other thing. Kind of weird to go out of your way to do that, but do you, I guess.
Yeah, but someone also thought that could just be the initials of the attending doctor when she gave birth, but... a lot of people just thought it was really weird. Like, he seemed like kind of like suspect number 1 though, to me, because from the way they made it sound, he was like really, really suspicious of how things were going and how he was acting, and they thought it was weird that he was the only one that truly found the bodies.
Well, and I believe that she was trying to sue him for like essentially child support.
Yeah.
So he could have just been pissed off about that, especially not knowing if it really was his kid or not.
Yeah. So another thing I didn't talk about what went missing was a set of house keys. So when he took these men with him to go find the bodies, this was the weird suspicion, was that when he went there, looking over and finding the bodies, it was kind of odd that in order to get into the house, he unlocked the front door with a key.
What?
And the only people who had keys were the family members.
Well, apparently that we know of.
Yeah. Well, apparently the set that went missing, I guess, was Victoria's. So they think Mr. Lorenz had him. So they think, again,
He sounds like a good suspect, honestly.
See, that's what I was thinking. They said years after, though, like, he would make, like, really strange comments, and he indicated, like, knowledge of details that only the killer would have known. So,
in your opinion, though, is he, like, the best suspect? I would argue probably yes, because there's another theory that, like, her husband, who apparently died in combat, that he, like, somehow magically came back. And, like, he, like, deserted, but it was confirmed later that no, he really did die. So I find that theory really hard to believe, personally.
Like, yeah, because it also said about Lorenz is that it was seen that evidence that he had intimate knowledge of the conditions of the ground at the time of the murders. Although being a neighbor and familiar with the local land, he may have been making an educated guess. So they didn't really want to put it, but I think still he had a fucking key to get into the house. Did nobody fucking question that? Knowing that the key was missing before, but the man had the key.
I know, my eyebrow would have been a wiggling. That's all I know.
Yeah. Like, come on. Like, man.
And like you said, the investigation was just so bad. Like, nobody questioned that. It's fine.
Yeah, oh my god. And they said another speculation was that Lorenz murdered the family after Victoria demanded financial support for the baby. But before his death in 1941, he conducted and won several civil claims for slander against persons who described him as the murderer of Hinterkaifeck. So, I don't know. This man, for all we know, he went to his grave actually being the actual murder, but nobody really acted on it. I don't know. It's just...
And really, would anybody really have? Because there's the other side of this, which we have sugarcoated thus far. The family had a lot of public rumors going around about them. And one of those rumors is that Andreas was actually in a sexual relationship with his daughter.
Yeah, and so incest was another. There's just so many suspects.
Which, from what I understand, that's almost confirmed that happened, that was a thing.
Yeah. Okay, so given a lot of history, even in America and other countries, incest back then was way more common than I would say it is now. Like, that was a thing, and some people brushed it as like, no, it's normal. It's not fucking normal.
It's not. Okay? If you like, were like pro incest, get off my platform. Get off. Yeah. Go away.
Get back the fuck up. My thing is, like, look at that weird blue family in Kentucky. That was a result of incest, and they were proud of it. I've met so many people in the state of Tennessee that
are just chill. Yeah, they're
proud of it, or they're like, yeah, I'm a child of incest, and they're excited. I'm like, no.
Like, all wrong. Them Alabama jokes exist for a reason. That's all I'm saying. Like, Can we not though?
I think once you commit incest, that's when you're allowed to grow a mullet.
And that's why I
theory.
think a lot of like the case was just so messed up because nobody liked Andreas at all. Honestly, hardly any of the family was well liked in the neighborhood. The daughter arguably was, but only because she taught Sunday school, from what I understand. Like she was pretty active in the community as far as like the family was concerned, because other than that, Andreas and his wife, like, they stayed away from everybody. They didn't like a lot of people. So
Yeah, it's, it was strange. Like, people knew of them. Some people knew them pretty well. But again, I think maybe it was a mixture of multiple people in the area who were not fans of them. Maybe they all kind of just
had enough,
worked together to make it kind of look like it was something weird. But it was considered the most gruesome crime in German history. Shockingly, after the Holocaust and everything else, that's what they picked. I don't know why. But it was because it was considered an unsolved crime, which it is. So it wasn't on the level, I guess.
Well, that it was just Holocaust. So that was brutal. Terrible. It was so bad. Like, as far as like murders go back then, it was such a horrific murder.
And my thing is, okay, so Munich came in to take over the investigation because back then the bigger cities handled that kind of stuff. So the little police department in Bavaria, Germany, why did they tell the Munich police that they had made reports about the strange happenings leading up to the death of all these people?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Like, hey, like Andreas made a report saying this was happening. The maid left because she thought this was happening, but they were both right about something, that something was in the attic.
Wasn't Schlittenbauer, wasn't he the same neighbor too that Andreas told about the footprints in the snow?
Yes.
And was he the only one? Now, from what I understand, no, he wasn't. There are other people who said Andreas was seeing weird shit going down on his farm. Because that would have made me a little suspect if, like, he was the only one who came forward going, like, oh, yeah, no, he was seeing, like, footprints in his yard and shit. Like, it would have only made me raise my eyebrow a little more at Schlittenbauer going, like, were you setting up?
Yeah, like...
But the maid throws it off. The maid completely throws it off because she said that, that the farm's haunted. That's why I'm leaving. I am done. We're not doing this again today, my friends.
Well, her thing was, like, she thought it was haunted because of the attic. But nobody would go up there. She wouldn't go up there. She didn't go up there. And then she just kept saying she heard strange noises around the area. So when all of a sudden Gruber was like, okay, well, yeah, there's some strange things happening. My newspaper went missing. And my keys went missing. I heard noises. I saw strange tracks that didn't lead from anywhere but only to the one barn. And then that night he hears someone in the attic but then couldn't find anybody. So, like, when you, like, I don't know, it just sounded so off and, like, I don't get it. And to me, it's a mystery. I would love to hear anyone else's thoughts on this because it is fucked up. Google it, read about it. It's a lot of shit.
And you'll hear a lot of the stuff that we're talking about too. Like, the family's reputation was just so bad that it's not. I'll put it this way: nobody in the town was really sad that they died. Let's put it that way. They were like, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, they kind of just like brush it off. Like,
but
okay,
you gotta wonder: is that why the
but
case wasn't investigated that thoroughly? Like, is it because everybody just kind of eye rolled at these people all the time, going like, yeah, whatever. One incestuous dad and his family are dead, I guess. Like, which, oh my god. If that's the case, that's so messed up.
Now, okay, so here's a little note about the guy who made the repairs that waited an hour, took 4.5 hours to repair. So 5.5 hours that man was on the farmstead and yet didn't sing a single soul. So it said that even though he was there for several hours, repair work after the crime, but was only questioned in 1925. So he was questioned 3 years later, finally, by the police department. They said the police had failed to conduct an interrogation immediately after crime. So that's why anyone who could have done it could have just left. Or had time to kind of create this whole story, get everyone else that was maybe partaking in it, like a whole thing. So his statement suggests that the perpetrator was back in the yard during the time of the repairs, like he was making them. The doors of the house had been locked and he had not met anyone. But he did hear the dogs barking inside, and at the time when he finished repairing the machine, the dog was tied up outside, and the barn door was open. So when the men discovered the bodies later that day, the dog was inside the barn, and the barn door had been closed again. So the guy was still there. He was just either one, stealthy, or two, this guy is just really bad at observing people. But it was just weird. Like,
or maybe he just assumed it was Andreas or something. Like, maybe if it was far enough, you know what I mean? Like, he was just like, oh, there he is.
Well, my thing is, though, wouldn't you just still, like, want to brush up and say, hey, I'm here to repair this, or this is what I fixed? Like, you know, like any modern day thing. If I had someone come to the house and fix the plumbing, I want to make sure, A, that I'm there.
But yeah, you're going to hope that he just doesn't, like, walk on the property and just like, yeah, I guess I'll just do my thing here.
Yeah, he just walks into my kitchen, sorry, makes a sandwich, you know, fix the plumbing. Fuck it, I'm out.
I would freak out. But I don't know. There's a lot of things about the case that just, they don't sit, like, there's no good answer. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, like, good conclusion either way.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like I said, please read up on it if you ask a question if you want, but it is crazy. It's fucked up in so many ways and so many damn holes. So I'm gonna conclude it for that story, but it was really,
it was
really
a time
crazy. And I'm gonna hand it over to Randy now because she has another psychotic story for you all.
Oh yeah, and one that I'm gonna tell you guys there's a lot of theories as to what happened here, but I'm not gonna go too far into any of them. The reason being is because some of them are just so, like, convoluted, I can't help you. Like, I don't even know how to explain it to you. So go read about it. There's plenty of YouTube videos about what I'm going to talk about. So you will not be short for content, if you know what I mean. And what I'm going into is the Villisca axe murders. And the thing about the Villisca axe murders...
It's my computer.
There are more theories than anything else out there. One being the very famous theory about the man on the train. If you guys know the YouTube channel Bedtime Stories, he does a very good job going into that conspiracy theory. But I'm going to get into the murders first. And the short version is, if I remembered the date, which I don't, June 9th, 1912. In the early morning of June 10th, 1912 is what they say. They don't really know. But what essentially happens in the Villisca axe murders house is the Moore family and their two house guests, which sadly were two little girls known as the Stillinger sisters, were bludgeoned to death in their house with an axe. And it was as bloody of a scene as you could imagine. It was horrible. And nobody knows who did it to this day. There are a lot of theories. Like I said, but there's so many possibilities. You have to remember, this is in the middle of Iowa. Okay. There's nothing out here. So the fact that, like, something so heinous would happen in this sort of little idyllic small town just kind of threw everybody involved through a loop. And the reason why there were two girls there in the house that, you know, didn't belong to the family, which I know sounds terrible, they were spending the night. They had gone to church with their families respectively that night. And the two little girls asked to spend the night with, the other kids. And the parents were like, yeah, sure. Now, here's what bugs me about that is that the Boris Dillinger sisters get, like, brutally murdered along with the rest of the Moore family. But I could not find a single thing about what happened to them after this happened, like after losing their two children in such a horrible way. I don't know what happened to them.
Do you think they just like up and left, or you think they were the murderers?
I don't think they were the murderers.
I don't know.
The reason being is, like, I didn't want to get too graphic into this, but they know that the killer was likely in the house either the whole day prior or sometime that evening, because they didn't get back home from church until the evening.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry. But, okay, dealing with what I just talked about, I know what you're talking about. I don't want a fucking attic or anything, okay?
Right?
Fuck
like,
that.
You know what I don't need in my life? A damn attic. That's all I'm saying.
That's where the killers live. I would keep a camera up in that bitch.
I am not doing this today, my friend. No.
So I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no. So they think that he hid in the attic, or there's another horrific idea that he was just moving from room to room so that nobody would really see him.
How?
Nobody in the house woke up, too. So what is speculated, because we know that he starts at the top of the house. He goes from the parents' room down. They think that he bludgeoned them so hard, that they never woke up. Which, like, please tell me that's the case.
That's a lot of strength. I mean, to be able to hit someone so quickly, but yet you think, okay, so they're in bed together, so you hit one, right? So naturally the other person is going to have to wake up.
I guess they didn't have spring-loaded mattresses. Oh my God, that's horrible. I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I find it really weird in cases like this where there's family annihilators that somehow nobody wakes up in the house. Like, it's like Amityville. There's a shotgun going off, but nobody
wakes up.
Yeah. Like, nobody runs out of the house. So, same thing here. I find it hard to believe that not a single person didn't wake up from this. So
yeah.
Now he moves down. He, sadly kills all the children. He positions the children's bodies, all I think most of which in lewd ways. So they don't know if this is a sexually motivated crime or not. Because I know one of the girls, they had their dress pulled up over them, so they were just exposed from the waist down. I don't know if it was because they didn't find any bodily fluids or anything at the scene to indicate that this was. They did find random bacon, if you wanted to know.
What?
Yeah, they found random bacon. And there is a theory that he used this bacon for very disgusting purposes, and that's why nobody was sexually assaulted.
Wait, how do you abuse bacon?
Because
do you know this answer? I gotta know now.
I don't know. Somebody correct me on this if I'm wrong. From what I understand, the bacon was not cooked. It was. They think that he used the bacon to essentially masturbate with. And that
he wrapped his meat with meat.
But once again, nobody knows because there was no bodily fluids found at the house. So they don't, other than blood, there's blood everywhere, obviously.
That's so gross.
But yeah, they don't know what the motive, and that's what made this, I think, investigating this case so hard, is that they didn't know if it was a sexually motivated crime with the kids, which back then was just unheard of or unthinkable. People didn't think that people could do that to children back then, which we know now. Yeah, they can, and they do, and it's horrible. Stop. But that's my PSA. Stop.
Just stop.
Fucking stop. But
hashtag stop, bitches.
So, and then, the family wasn't, they were, I would argue, prominent, but they were not the shit in this town either. So, from all intents and purposes, they were pretty liked and everything. So they don't know if maybe it was motivated by the family themselves, and then the Stillinger sisters were just kind of collateral damage because they were just happened to be there. I find it hard to believe that this isn't a sexually motivated crime just based off of the bodies.
Yeah.
Because if I can read from the Wikipedia page here, investigators believe that all the victims, except for Lena Stillinger, had been asleep when murdered. There's a reason for that. I think it's because of where her body was found. It looked like she tried to run. Yeah, that's sad, isn't it? This poor little girl, like, just probably watched somebody get hacked to death, and, you know, she didn't make it. They thought that she was awake and tried to fight back, and was found lying crosswise on the bed with a defensive wound on her arm. Lena's nightgown was pushed up to her waist, and she was wearing no undergarments, leading law enforcement to think that she was molested, or somebody had attempted to molest her. However, like I said, they didn't find any bodily fluid to indicate that. So that's what's strange about the case, is that
or he had like a good pull-out game. I don't know.
No,
that is so weird. The bacon
no, they would have found trauma on the
me.
body. They would have known. But like I said, the thing that throws me through the loop is the bacon. Why the bacon?
I mean, there's just so many questions.
And from what I understand too, they didn't use the blade of the axe on all of the victims. He used the blade on Josiah, but then he used the blunt end of the axe on everybody else. So
that sounds like it's very personal.
Which, yeah, but it's like, but wait, why? So
yeah, why? Like, well, obviously, like, why did you kill him? But like,
and then why molest the kids after the fact? I don't know. That's what makes the case so weird. It could be just like some crazy person out here. There's like one guy that they think may have done it, and he was a priest, and he had been to be a guest at the church that night, and he was known for kind of being kind of freaking crazy, and he was also known as being a sexual deviant. So they thought maybe he did it.
Jesus.
And police did, get a confession from him. His name was Reverend George Kelly. But he recanted his statement like hours later, and honestly, he was just so like mentally ill. They really couldn't tell if he had done it or not. So, to me, he's a good suspect. I don't know if he's a strong suspect. There's also a theory that a senator may have killed the Moore family, because they believe that Josiah Moore was having an affair with Frank Jones. He was a senator, with his daughter-in-law, but there's no evidence to say that this is actually factual. So to me, that's a pretty weak argument.
Yeah, there's not much there.
The one that I think is most probable, I'll argue, is the man on the train theory. And this is saying that, so there was a string of axe murders that happened all through the Midwest at this time, and they just happened to follow the train rail, so they think that whoever was doing these axe murders, they were doing it and leaving pretty much the next day on the train, and they would just continue from town to town. This goes all the way from like Kansas to the New Orleans area. So well,
like, here's the thing. So if they suspect the guy on the train, so he did commit other murders similar to what he did?
He did. Because there was, which I cannot believe I am saying this, there is a lot of family axe murders that are just unknown. And, sadly, the Villisca axe murders, I think, were only really paid attention to because of the family status in the community. I think a lot of other ones probably went unreported or just not very documented because they probably happened in these little towns, and they probably convicted somebody of them, so they're not really considered part of the sphere. The fact that this might be a serial killer actually kind of piques my interest because I think back then serial killers could really move a lot easier than they could now.
Well, you gotta figure, like, 1912, like, what was available and things like that. So back then, yes.
And as long as he kept his mouth shut, nobody would know, really.
And, even if, say, someone was talking to him and he was actually talking about it, they wouldn't think too much of it. Like, oh, it's just this guy riding a train, kind of crazy, whatever. He's just loopy. Like, not knowing, yeah, he could have been the convicted killer, but it's a wild thing. And,
one man is actually, there's actually evidence of, or a lot of people speculate that he was the man on the train, and his name is William. This is his nickname, not mine. Blackie Mansfield. And he, some people think that Senator Jones may have hired Mansfield to do this, but I don't buy the whole senator theory that he had Josiah Moore killed. I just don't. There's not enough there for me to be like, oh yeah, that's possible.
Well, okay, so they said, like, William Mansfield was the train person, but who was Andrew Sawyer? Wasn't he also, like, he was the stranger that?
Yeah, so, he was a transient, from what I understand. I haven't really heard a lot about the theory of Andrew Sawyer. From what I understand, he may have done it and then somebody put him on a train to get him out of the town after the fact, but there's not a lot for me to say that that Sawyer did it, because he came up in the grand jury testimonies, and not a lot of people thought that he was like a good suspect. So
yeah. I think honestly, well, because Mansfield, they really kind of put their money into him possibly being more than anybody the suspect, right?
Now, I could honestly believe that Reverend George Kelly did it, just solely based off of the fact that the murders were so strange and the fact that how they were committed. He was a sexual deviant, we know that, but from what I understand, he was not like sexually weird with kids from what I've read about him. So that's also a weird MO that I'm kind of like, well, maybe it wasn't him, because he seemed to harass women. He didn't harass children, from what I understand.
Well, okay, so like he said he travels around, right?
Yes,
he was a traveling reverend.
Yeah, he was. He was a traveling minister.
So was he? Was he in some of those other towns where the murders were committed, though?
No, they don't think he's the man on the train. They just think that maybe he did this like one thing this one time, which is weird, because if that was the case, you would think that there would be more murderers following him around, you know?
Yeah, like you think like maybe that was like
and
his
he
first
was known
taste of
to
it?
be mostly like a peeping Tom, and yes, he did peep in on like young girls, but from what I understand, these were teenagers. Like I said, it would be very weird for him to go from adult women and older girls to young girls.
Yeah.
Because the way that we understand sexual crime, it's usually very specific. So, and like I said, he's not tied to any other like murder or anything.
Yeah.
It would be really weird for him to have snapped once and then like never snap again.
Yeah, you think like, I don't know, got like a taste for it or something. Like, I don't know, because whatever drew, but I feel like still, again, it was like so personal, because like, why would you kill the father with the blade of the axe, but the rest of them with the handle of the axe? Like, I feel like that was like some grudging thing towards
buy
him.
Into the idea that maybe the Jones theory could go somewhere, but then again, like I said, there's just no evidence to corroborate that Josiah Moore was having an affair with, I mean, there is the idea that maybe it was multiple murders, and that's why Josiah was axed to death so heinously, and the others were kind of just meant to do whatever. But they think it would have been really hard for, I think, multiple people to have committed the murders, but I don't think so, because that would explain why nobody woke up. If there were two people in the house doing the killing, they only found one murder weapon, though, so...
I mean,
who knows? It is so strange. This is what makes Villisca so irritating, is that I feel like every lead was like followed, but none were followed in the extent that you would think.
See, I kind of wonder though, like, you know, with obviously so much modern stuff, in some way, depending on how well the evidence was, conducted, and if they still had anything around, like, if they could go back
also the day
and
after
kind
the
of break it
freaking
down.
murder happened, when the bodies were still in the freaking house, they let over 100 people to come look and gawk at what happened.
Okay, so back then they were retarded because they even did that. Like, okay, look at Bonnie and Clyde. They were dead in the car. They dragged the car down the street, and people were ripping items off Bonnie and Clyde, and that's why things were missing. And some people have it in possession somewhere, and nobody knows where it's at. It's because people just let him do it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
It's ridiculous because you're like, what the hell, guys?
I understand you want to show them that maybe they're dead, but like, post a picture. Back then, obviously, they didn't have like a lot of filters or like PG-13.
I guess we're like, keep it on the down low. Like, don't go just like telling the community, hey, we got these 2 dead bodies. Let's go. Like, or the house, like the house itself, because the way that the bodies were even discovered. So their neighbor was like, hey, they haven't come out to their morning chores. Like, what's going up? Kind of like, with Hinterkaifeck, except she actually did something about it. She let their chickens out, and just thinking, oh, well, maybe they slept in or whatever, They had been out late the night before. It's not out of the realm of possibility. But then when she still didn't hear anybody, she called Josiah's brother and had him come. The door was locked, but I think he eventually got in, and that's when they found the bodies. So... homegirl at least actually did something, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, well, it's been 3 days, I guess.
Yeah, 4 days later, maybe we should go check.
Now,
like, we should go look in the barn.
His brother did say that when he walked in the house, like, the worst smell ever, like, you could smell the blood in the air, and apparently anybody who had owned the house after the fact said that you could always just smell that slight metallic scent of blood.
Now, okay, so...
That's how much blood was on the scene. Like, that's...
Now, like, I know, like, Ghost Adventures went there, but did Zach buy that house? Was that the house he bought, or no?
I don't think so. I don't know, though.
There was one house
I don't pay
he
attention
bought,
to...
and then he ended up knocking it down. I can't remember. It was like...
Oh, no, that was the
still
demon
good.
house. No, that was a different house.
Okay.
No,
sorry, guys.
From what I understand, that the house is still, sitting or whatever, and it's like a little museum. You can go and tour it or whatever. I know a lot of people do paranormal investigation there, and they've gotten some pretty creepy footage. I'm on the fence when it comes to shit like that, because it's like, hold on, I had a hiccup. I'm on the fence when it comes to shit like this, because to me, it's a little disrespectful if that is somebody's, quote unquote resting place. If the place is haunted, then leave them to be. You know what I mean? Don't go bringing up their trauma. I understand that it's interesting and like you want to know, but I'm also like it's kind of like, I don't know.
Well,
it's weird.
People
to me.
like okay, so I don't mind like of curiosity, or if you could somehow find some weird unknown
evidence or something,
ghostly world evidence. But like people like, okay, like Ghost Adventure, like Zach Baggins, he sits there and tries to like,
I don't like how they go
interrogate and try to rile up something that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, like he goes in the house and it's like, oh yeah, you were brutally murdered. Like,
here, I got the fucking axe that killed you. Like, no, like don't bring up like bad things. They're like, ask questions like, are you okay?
Because there's weird shit in the house. I know, because it's some of the most like documented like haunting footage out there. That the little girls will play with you in the room that they were killed in. But like I said, I'm so on the fence about stuff like this. Luckily, who's ever in the house is very respectful, and they don't have any problems with the hauntings. They're kind of just casual. Yeah, but
like,
also
don't make him feel bad.
That's the thing. It's like, I'm always just so on the fence about, like, I would love to go see like no, you can't see Hinterkaifeck. They tore it down. But I would love to go see the Villisca Axe Murder House, more as a historical like curiosity, and so I could like see the crime scene. I have
the history of it.
I have a very investigative like sense about it. Like, I want to go and look and see how this could have happened. I would personally like to know the distance between like all the rooms, where the attic is, like.
My thing is, like, back then, like, you had wood floors and floors creak.
That's
you
what
can't
I'm
tell me you
saying.
can't
How
hear
does
it.
anybody hide anywhere back in the day?
Okay, like
I've lived in some old ass houses, and let me tell you, even in a newer home, shit creaks. Like,
you have to hear it.
oh god!
If they were wearing boots, you'd hear the heavy boots. I can see Pixie.
That's
in the
Keto.
camera. That's her cat. Oh, that's Keto.
Yeah.
You can see the kitty.
I think it's about to storm here, so he's like already peeking out, going like, "Where is it?"
But it was a gruesome murder, and it was
very
insane.
tragic because there's only anybody who talks about Villisca doesn't acknowledge this, and I'm going to because I feel like we need to. There are only 2 adults that I'm not saying this is great, but like there are only 2 adults that died in this house. The rest of them were children. Like, can we remember that there, and not to mention the bodies of these children were sexually posed and very inappropriately, and not including the 2 little girls that should, in my opinion, shouldn't have even been there. And it's sad that they were just having a sleepover and this is how their lives ended. I would like to acknowledge that because when you talk about the Villisca Axe Murder House, everybody like doesn't think about that, in my opinion. Like, you guys, there's a lot of kids that died in this house this night. That's horrible.
That's the thing, is a lot of like, from that one to the one I was talking about, like these kids were just straight up killed. And then in that one, sadly, they were posed and
the only
stuff
like
that.
semi-comforting thing about Hinter, because I think and people are probably gonna like scream at me for this, I don't think death is cool either way. Okay, let me put it out there, murder's not cool either way, but I think it's different for an adult to die because an adult's lived a life, whereas these kids didn't even get to live. Like we were saying, little Joseph was only like what, 2?
Yeah,
and he was brutally murdered in his own bed. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's what I think I'm trying to get across. To me, it's really sad when it's children, because like children haven't lived their full lives.
Yeah, and that's why it's just like, it's so sad. So in some sense, like when you talk about it, you still got to respect,
the victims.
The victims itself, because it's just
like
it's
I said,
tragic.
if the little girls are haunting the Villisca house, well, you know what, they damn well can, and that's fine. Leave them alone, ghost hunting, ghost adventures.
They obviously seem like they've came to terms and they're happy. So just let them be happy. They're happy in their afterlife. Let them do it.
But that brings us to our next case where only adults died, and honestly, I don't know how I feel about it.
And the kids are, and the one kid is fucked up. We are gonna dive into.
And she wasn't even a kid when this happened.
No, she wasn't. But this is we're gonna talk about Lizzie Borden, because if anything describes a fucked up case, it would be Lizzie Borden. And and her 40 wax. Yes, and people said it's actually only 29, but I think the little like ditty song that you talk about, I think it says like 81 or something, but it wasn't that much.
No, I think it was like 40 and 41. Oh yeah, you're right, 81. No. I just did the math.
Yeah.
Me? No idea.
No.
I don't know the math, you guys. I'm sorry.
So many big numbers. Okay, so here's the thing. I mean, they did make the movie with Christina Ricci, which, hi kiddo, I can see you. The show, the movie or whatever, the televised one was actually pretty good, and it fell along the lines of like leading up to it and like what happened. And
yeah, they followed it pretty accurately, I would argue.
It was pretty good. So if anything, if you ever don't want to read about it, just kind of watch it. It kind of gives you a good idea.
I'm going to warn them now. The soundtrack is terrible.
Yes.
They put like modern, like this like modern hipster music is what I would call it over the thing. I'm like, y'all, this does not set the tone for me. Y'all need a help.
You see her like chopping up at her dad or whatever, and you hear little Wayne playing in the background.
Yeah, the only thing I would argue about that movie is that they definitely like point it in the direction of like, oh no, she definitely did this. Like, she definitely killed her parents. And it's like, okay, but even yeah, she's the most likely suspect, but I don't think you should do that because technically she was acquitted.
She was acquitted, and I think there's a lot of factors.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm going to break in real quick with this. Sure. The way I've seen this well done in a series, at least, is with America versus OJ, which was done by Ryan Murphy. they don't say specifically he did it. They don't even show you and imply that he is the one. They show you the evidence as it was laid out in court.
Presented, yeah.
And I think that's the way that they should have done this movie with Lizzie Borden is like, I understand, like, point the audience there if you want to, but do it in a way that, you know, you're kind of still right. You know, like in the way that, well, yeah, we don't know.
The O.J. Simpson, it's a very tossed-up thing. I don't know. We may or may not talk to it. It'll probably be down the road before we talk about it.
I'll be mad about it. Just currently, so I'll scream.
You know, we actually got to see the Bronco. You know, when we went to the crime museum, the actual physical Bronco that he drove on the chase was actually there,
which is surreal to see in person. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's creepy. So I'm going to break down a little bit about, I guess, her family and her dad and all, like,
Andrew.
Okay, so you I'm gonna say a little bit, and I'm sure Randy's gonna go a little bit into it too. Okay,
is this gonna be like the A name thing, like Andreas, Andrew? Like, what's up with y'all? You okay? You all right out here?
So a little about her. Okay, her dad. So he was a successful guy. He made most, I guess, his money was from making and selling furniture and caskets. Okay, that's a little fucked up. I wonder which one made him more money. I feel like there was a lot of death if caskets were like a number one seller. He worked and directed several other things, such as like a textile mill, Globe Yarn Mill, Troy Cotton, and a woolen manufacturing company.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yes.
Can I just say that would be an excellent movie about like a serial killer or somebody who's actually just like the local coffin maker and he's just trying to save his business. So you know what I mean? Like,
I will write you a version of that. I will send it to you. I will write one.
I'm sorry, that just sounds like it'd be bomb. I'd watch that, especially if you made it like on a comical like scale.
I could draw you a stick version.
Maybe he like Dexter's feet, which Dexter did not do. But I have problems with Dexter. Just as a tangent, I don't like Dexter. Like he only kills like bad people or people who deserve to die, or nobody deserves to die. That's what I'm saying. But like in this fictional universe, maybe there's just shitty people that he's like, well, nobody's gonna miss him anyway. Bye. Write the story, Elisa.
I will do this. Okay, so he was quite the businessman, and they became very wealthy, but he didn't live on the high end of town. He stayed in kind of just like a more rural area, like not rural, but like a very just like middle class looking area. Now, Mr. Borden purchased a lot of commercial property. He was the president also of the Union Saving Bank and the director of the Durfee Safe Deposit and Trust Company. So this man had his hand in like all the fucking businesses.
Was very wealthy. Like even in today's standards, I think he would be like balling. Like he would be.
Yeah. They said when he died, he was worth about $300,000, which is a lot of fucking money back then.
What is that in today's money? I wonder.
It's like I think it's like a little over $8 million today.
Oh my God.
So
and this man want to get fucking indoor plumbing for his kids. Okay.
you pretty much owned the bank. You ran a successful furniture company, and you helped all. Like, this man had money, but he was so fucking frugal. Okay, he wouldn't get indoor fucking plumbing or electricity.
Even though even the most basic like middle class families had both of these things at this time. This was not a luxury thing.
Yeah, so you got to figure this is the late 1800s, soon coming into the 1900s. And while all these like high-end class rich people were like, oh, look at my indoor, toilet and stuff. And he's like, you can use the outhouse in the back. Like, fuck that shit. And I can understand maybe that's what drove Lizzie to really wanting to kill him, because she wanted indoor plumbing and electricity.
Allegedly. I'm going to say that through this whole thing. Allegedly.
And so he was a successful guy up to like when he died. Lizzie and her sister, though, Emma, they grew up in a somewhat religious home. They attended church. Man.
She had to step it up because like when their mom died, she was pretty much like the only one old enough to take care of Lizzie. So Emma, in all sense and purpose, was Lizzie's mother.
Yeah, and I feel bad. I really did feel bad for her in this whole thing.
She's kind of like a lost, like, message in all this.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, her and her sister, you know, they help teach Sunday school, and like, I believe Lizzie was like the church's secretary treasurer, and you know, they helped with like contemporary social movements as like women's Christian, you know, stuff and all sorts of things. So like, they did a lot of stuff for the community and the church, and so they were kind of like, you know, seen as like social like goodness, and you know, their father was very wealthy.
However,
and, like, it was,
they were spinsters.
they were,
which means they were unmarried, and they weren't married by the time they were like, I don't know, 12 or something. So they're old in this time.
Yeah, so
which they really weren't, right? They were like in their 30s when this happened.
Can you imagine us now, like back then? Like, we would be fucked.
Oh, I would be an old maid. I'd be fucked, honestly.
I'm 31 now, so like, and I'm not married.
And you're also living with your significant other. You're a scandal waiting to happen.
I would be the town whore.
That slut.
That slut. Look at her walking down. She's showing some ankle. Fuck that bitch.
Showing her shoulder. What? Like,
too much.
But yeah, I mean, that's the kicker of all this. And why were they spinsters? You know, Lisa, I think it feels like it has something to do with the fact that their dad was a jackass.
Yeah,
I'm not victim blaming here, guys. I'm just saying there's some people who are just a little shitty, and he was one of them.
Yeah, like, and okay, so they even had a maid though, so it's not like the girls actually had to clean up the fucking house or anything. They had a maid that was from Ireland. She was an immigrant,
Bridget.
You know, so yes, Bridget,
who is very disrespected, by the way.
You know, she kind of testified though about the whole thing and the father and stuff being dead, and about Lizzie and Emma. They, you know, she said like they rarely ate meals with their father, and they had a stepmom as well.
Can I just say, Bridget came in to spill some tea, you know, like
she did.
She came in to talk some mad shit. I love Bridget, man. Bridget, there's a theory that Bridget is the one who did the murders. I don't believe it, honestly. But I thought Bridget was kind of a badass. So.
Yeah, and so wasn't there like a whole like ordeal?
And they didn't even call her by her name like half the time. They called her Maggie, which was the name of like an old maid that they had before. So yeah, once again, this family, man,
upper class bitches.
Poor Bridget, man.
It's because they didn't have indoor plumbing. That's why.
They were pissed off. They were done.
Okay, so didn't like the dad like kill like Lizzie's pigeons though?
That's alleged. That has never been confirmed. That's something that Lizzie said happened. We don't know. We just don't know if that's real.
She had this whole thing about her pigeons, but that was like they said happened like a week or so before like her dad and stepmom were like murdered.
I don't really know that I buy the pigeon like thing.
The pigeon story I felt was kind of just like it's a very weak case. Like it wasn't.
Well, it was sort of like they were making like excuses for her, in my opinion, of like, oh, this is why he killed her pigeons. Like, okay, like, but.
Oh, hold on, I'm gonna let Cheeto out.
Is that the is that the straw that broke the camel's back?
Well, see, okay,
the pigeon.
So this paragraph said, because obviously I'm looking online.
Now, from what I understand, there is some context to the pigeon story in the way that they think that he may have killed the pigeons to ward off somebody that they thought was sneaking around on the property, which is still fucked up, but it wasn't. I don't think it was like directed at her. I don't think it had anything to do with her.
Yeah. Okay.
Which weird if that's the message you want to send there, Andrew. But okay.
They said that like I guess Lizzie and them were kind of, I guess, you know, there was like upset because like their father was giving real estate like to Abby's family.
Well, let's be honest, they didn't like stepmom from from
the
get-go.
stepmother's sister got a house and demanded to receive a rental property. And
ooh, can I tell you something that I found interesting though in my research?
Oh, yes.
It was not initially Lizzie who was antagonistic towards the stepmom. It was actually Emma. For good reason, you know what I mean? Because up until this point, Emma's been like the lady of the house, essentially.
Yeah, she was like, you know, she took care of everything else in a sense because their father was constantly working and making
so
deals.
there was actually a lot of tension between Lizzie and the stepmom whose name escapes me right now. What was her name? I can't think of her name.
Stepmom's?
Yeah,
Abby.
Abby. Thank you. I could not think of it. I was like, I know it's an A, but Lizzie and her actually got along at points, which is very strange. And it was only when like Emma would be away or whatever, and they were actually cordial. It's not until Emma came back into the house that Lizzie really started to hate this lady.
Well, so see, when they gave Abby's sister a house, and then okay, so I guess it was the sisters that demanded to receive a rental property, which is actually the home that they lived in with their mom until she died, which they purchased from their father for $1. And then it says a few weeks before the murders, they sold the property back to their father, for $5,000, which is equivalent to, they said, $142,000 today.
Which just tells me that they were trying to get money from like the start.
I guess they were so mad because the dad was giving stuff away to their stepmom's family that they wanted. And you got it. It's like a payback.
I'll play devil's advocate here for Andrew because I'm not going to say that this is right or anything, but this is a time where women did not own property.
Yes.
So I understand probably why he didn't give them a whole lot or whatever, because that just wasn't, quote unquote, their place. Oh, that sounds so bad. But it's just true. This is a different time. Like, I think when we look at these things, we're always looking through the lens of our time. But y'all, sometimes you gotta look at it as in like, this is what, the 1800s? Ain't no women owning property right now. Like,
well, and this says, okay, the night before the murders, John Morse was the brother of Lizzie and Emma's mom, visited and was invited to stay for a few days to discuss business matters with Andrew. So some writers have speculated that their conversation, particularly about the property transfer, may have aggravated an already tense situation. So I guess everyone was fighting over, I wonder if it was like property, like when their mom was alive, like it had to deal with her. That's the only thing I could think they could argue about.
Well, and the sisters, the reason why they sold the property back to Andrews because they couldn't handle it. They didn't know, they didn't have business etiquette, which is like, yeah, duh. Like, they weren't trained.
You gotta pay for things.
They weren't trained with it either, though. So
no, these girls were given money and whatever they wanted while Daddy worked. So these girls had no clue, you know. And
so they were probably a little pissed off about that. You know what I mean? Like, I understand.
Yeah.
Like, I empathize with the girls. I really, really do. I get it. Because you have to imagine it has to suck not owning anything. That your whole life is pretty much in the hands of your father and your stepmother who doesn't freaking like you. What's going to happen to you after he dies?
Story of my life.
Oh my God.
For several days, it said, before the murders, the entire household had been violently ill. A family friend later speculated that mutton left on the stove for the use for meals over several days was the cause, but Abby had feared poisoning because Andrew was not a popular guy.
Which, can you imagine?
Even though he was wealthy.
Can you imagine? You leap from that to we were poisoned. Like, what?
Yeah,
Abby, calm the fuck down,
but
ma'am.
Here's the thing, though, is that they must have kept eating it if it was used for several meals. So
yeah, once again, frugal.
Yeah, like this man was very, very rich, and yet again, so damn cheap. Okay, so was it August 4th, 1892 is when they died, right? That's when it all happened.
From my understanding.
Says, so I'm reading from the internet in a sense, so we're just kind of going back and forth here. John Morse arrived in the evening of August 3rd and slept in the guest room that night. After breakfast the next morning, in which Andrew, Abby, Lizzie, Morse, and the Bortons made Bridget, a.k.a. Maggie.
Yeah. Not her damn name. Like Maggie.
God forbid. R.I.P. Bridget. Andrew and Morse went to the sitting room where they chatted nearly for an hour. Morse left around 8:48 a.m., so homeboy just left to buy a pair of oxen to visit his niece in Fall River.
All right.
Because, you just go to your local store and just buy a pair of oxen.
I do. I don't know what you do in your spare time.
I know, God. Planning to return to the Borden home for lunch at noon, Andrew left for his morning walk sometime after 9 a.m. Said, although cleaning the guest room was one of Lizzie and Emma's regular chores, Abby went upstairs sometime between 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. to make the bed. According to the forensic investigation, Abby was facing her killer at the time of the attack. She was struck on the side of the head with a hatchet, which cut her just above the ear, causing her to turn and fall face down on the floor, creating contusions on the nose and the forehead.
But the thing is, that means, whoever did this looked her in the fucking face. That
just didn't give two shits.
That's, a different level.
It really is. And then it says her killer then struck her multiple times, delivering 17 more direct hits to the back of the head before, obviously killing her. But here's the thing. Okay, so from where for the hatchet hit, nowadays, you can figure from how in the angle, you would also be able to determine how tall the person was, so.
Yes.
So, I don't know.
We know this forensically now, but I don't know that they thought
I'm
of
guessing,
it then.
I don't think back then they kind of knew that. And just so you know, I will be posting pictures of all of it and the body and everything. It's
your
gross.
Discretion advice.
Yes. Close your eyes if you don't want to look. It says, okay, so when Andrew turned around return.
Sorry.
I cannot
Hold
talk.
on.
Oh, my
Stars!
God.
Love of my life!
Shut it!
I'm sorry, you're going to hear my dog barking.
It's okay. It's actually not that loud from what I can hear.
Okay, good.
It's not too bad. Okay, so when Andrew returned at around 10:30 a.m., his key failed to open the door. So he knocked for attention. Sullivan went and unlocked the door, finding it jammed. She uttered an expletive. Sorry, I can't read Hooked on Phonics.
She said, fuck!
Basically, she's like... yeah, she's like, fuck!
That's my version.
We should act this out.
I'm not even gonna lie. I'm gonna be screaming at the top of my lungs.
Exactly. It said she would later testify that she heard Lizzie laughing immediately after this. She did not see Lizzie, though, but stated that the laughter was coming from the top of the stairs. So that's a little odd. And this was considered significant as Abby was already dead by this time and her body would have been visible to anyone on the home's second floor. So I can understand where they were like, okay, so Lizzie might have done it. I don't know. It said Lizzie later denied being upstairs and testified that her father had asked her where Abby was, and she replied that a messenger had delivered Abby a summons to visit a sick friend.
Which,
So-
no.
No, that
You
that
know
wasn't
why?
real.
Because Abby didn't have any friends.
She had her sister. That was about it.
Yeah, I kid you not. This is actually the reason why they think that this is a lie, because Abby did not have friends.
Well, yeah, because, they didn't really,
Which I'm that is so messed up.
But here's the thing. It's during the court case, they didn't summon any of Abby's friends, there was nothing there.
They didn't even have any friends to go interview to see if she had really went to go find, to attend to a sick friend. So,
Yeah.
what does that tell you?
Okay,
I feel bad because it's oh my god, you already just got murdered and then they're going to find out nobody likes you.
You have no friends.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
It's a terrible thing.
This whole podcast is a horrible idea because it's mostly just me laughing. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not laughing. It's not funny.
It's not funny, and we feel bad for people who died, but it's funny in the aspects, like, obviously looking back now in our modern age, we're just like...
In hindsight. Like, if you have a sick sense of humor like we do, maybe...
Yeah, we're just a little fucked up. Yeah. So Lizzie stated that she had removed Andrew's boots to help him into his slippers before he lay down on the sofa for a nap, which it's kind of weird. I don't know.
He gonna take a nap. And this was routine, by the way. You did this on the reg.
Yeah. And it says an anomaly contradicted by the crime scene photos in which Andrew was wearing boots. So that didn't add up.
These
and then she informed she then informed Sullivan of a department store sale that permitted her to go, but Sullivan felt unwell and went to take a nap in her bedroom instead.
Yeah, Bridget was sick this day. She was not feeling it. So, and then Abby still made her wash windows.
But see, here's the thing, though, is I understand, like, okay, so everyone's talking about Lizzie. Lizzie is constantly being in all these rooms where all this supposedly was happening, or the area and stuff. And it does sound suspicious. I mean, obviously, looking at it, I would be like, okay, yeah, you kind of sound like you were up to something. I don't know.
I do have a theory about this, but we'll get to it. Or do you want me to just say what I think so that you can kind of see it through my lens?
Go ahead and drop it before I read this next part.
I think Lizzie Borden may have had a split personality. I shit you not. I think
she's maybe bipolar from everything.
Yeah, I think she snapped. And that's why, like, she can give some account of where she was, but also can't give some account of where she was. I don't think she's a liar. She's not a very good liar, and her story was really actually pretty consistent.
Well, like, Abby, though, you know, she was already dead, and they said Lizzie was just up there laughing. Now, that could have been a split personality, like schizophrenia. Like, that could have been a part of her who was like, yeah, you know, but she I don't think inside, the part deep of down, her didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think the part of her that was lucid knew what was happening.
Wasn't present. Like, you know, if you ever seen the movie Split, watch that and think of this case, because that movie was really fucked up. It messed with me.
Well, and we know, like, and the reason why I say, like, she likely maybe was is because we know that people with these kinds of mental illnesses don't know that they have them. Yeah. So it's very possible she had no clue she did this.
They don't, they don't see it. They can't admit to someone necessarily that they're schizophrenic because they have no idea. So it said Sullivan testified that she was in her third floor room resting and cleaning windows when just before 11:10 a.m. she heard Lizzie call from the downstairs, "Maggie, come quick, father's dead. Somebody came in and killed him." Okay, that sounds really odd. Like, you were in the house, they only killed him, not the witnesses.
But, and I do genuinely think that she thinks that's what happened.
Because she maybe didn't realize, again, it was a split personality.
And the reason why I'm offering this...
She stepped back after it happened.
The reason why I'm offering this theory is because even when she's interrogated later, her story... They start convinced she was on morphine and shit. But even then, her story didn't really fluctuate that much.
Yeah.
And I think all the morphine started to do was kind of maybe loosen her brain a little to where, like, well, maybe I wasn't in the kitchen. Like, she doesn't know where she was.
Yeah, and so here's a gruesome detail. One of his eyeballs had been split clearly in two, suggesting that he had been asleep when he was attacked. He was still bleeding. His still bleeding wound suggested a very recent attack. Detectives estimated...
I can't even visualize that.
His detectives estimated his death had occurred approximately at 11 a.m. So this happened literally... Like, she called for Maggie, a.k.a. Bridget, 10 minutes after it happened. So in that 10-minute time frame or whatever, she didn't fully register that maybe she could have done it.
Yeah, well, somebody was saying, too, like, how come you didn't run out of the house? And I'm like, I think she was in shock. I will argue this is why I don't like when people are like, oh, look how they reacted. You know, they're guilty. I'm like, I can't gauge how I would react to that situation.
Well, here's my thing though, is that did Lizzie have like a splatter of blood on her? Because if you hit someone with an axe like that, that shit's gonna come back at you.
Now, she did have they saw a speck of blood on her, and she said that she thought it was a stain from soup. So they just never knew. But I mean, later on, she goes to burn this dress, which I think she started. I am not saying that her split personality thing, like, oh, she just never knew she did it. I think she gained her memory of it later. And I think that's when she started covering shit up. But I don't think initially she knew that she did it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so
if you look at her behavior and you look at like studies about people who are, like you said, schizophrenic, it lines up. It's very, and that's very sad if that's the case, because that means she did something that she doesn't even know. Like, she didn't even remember doing it.
Yeah. And so,
and she lost literally her entire family for it. So
yeah, and there's a whole, you know, obviously the investigation was it was crazy. Like, again, I'm just going to kind of read it off to you guys because it's just easy that way because there's so much stuff.
Oh, yeah. The investigation is a doozy.
Yeah. So Lizzie Borden's initial answers to the police officer's question were at times strange, you know, it just didn't make sense. It wasn't adding up to them in a sense. So initially she reported hearing a groan or a scraping noise or a distress call before entering the house. Okay, but she was saying she was in the house. I don't know. 2 hours later, she told police she had heard nothing and entered the house not realizing that anything was wrong. And then when asked where her stepmother was, she recounted Abby receiving a note asking her to visit a sick friend. Once again, the no friend. So sad.
Now everybody, and like, I know everybody's gonna call me out of like, well then what is the thing about her lying about the sick friend? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe she just didn't really care where she was and just that's what she said.
Yeah, like you could, you know.
And then once she was already traumatized and just kept repeating that she wasn't, once again, she was probably in freaking shock. I mean, that was not a clean crime scene, let me tell you.
Yeah. It said she also stated that she thought Abby had returned and asked if someone could go upstairs to look for her. Sullivan and a neighbor, Mrs. Churchill, were halfway up the stairs, their eyes level with the floor, when they looked into the guest room and saw Abby lying face down on the floor. So most of the officers who interviewed Borden reported that she disliked her attitude. Some said she was too calm and poised. So that does lead suspicion in some weird way, you know.
But again, you don't know how you're going to react to something like this.
Yeah, and everyone reacts to something different, you know, and it's not immediate to,
and
like,
then by
the
then, like,
Hollywood
I know
movies.
when, like, I'm trying to, like, think, I'm very calm and poised, as one would say. So maybe that's how she was or whatever. But the thing, too, I don't even know how to frame this. So the other thing about the sick note thing, maybe Abby really did tell her that, hey, I'm going out, my friend's sick.
Yeah.
Maybe she was lying. I don't know. Like, like, I wasn't there, guys. But, like, I'm just saying, there are some characteristics to Lizzie Borden's character that tell me there was something not right upstairs.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Because she was also a kleptomaniac and shit. Like, she could have just had, like, borderline, honestly. She was... And I'm not trying to stigmatize these mental illnesses. It's a hard thing to deal with if you are. But you got to remember, back then, they didn't know what mental illness was.
Yeah, I mean, it was just...
If you were crazy, you were just crazy. Like, there's no...
Nothing else to it. It said, despite her attitude and changing alibis, nobody bothered to check her for bloodstains. Police did search her room, but it was a cursory inspection. So at the trial,
they really went in like, okay.
Yeah. All right. It's cool, guys. We don't need to be in here. It's fine.
Yeah, she's got a bed. Okay, all right.
At the trial, they admitted not to doing a proper search because Borden was not feeling well, and they were subsequently. So, oh my God, fuck it.
Subsequently,
they criticized for their lack of diligence. I can't talk. Oh my God. So basically, they just
like
brushed
dipped.
it off. They were just like, okay, we see there's a murder here. Oh, he was chopped up over here. Oh, she's not feeling well, you guys. We're just gonna dip out, just take the bodies. Let's go. And that's just so weird.
Could you imagine? How was your day-to-day, honey? Well, I just took some bodies, dipped out.
Yeah.
It's fine.
In the basement, police found 2 hatchets, 2 axes, and a hatchet head with a broken handle. The hatchet head was suspected of being the murder weapon, as the break in the handle appeared fresh and the ash and dust on the head. Unlike that of the other 2 bladed tools, appeared to have been deliberately applied to make it look as if it had not been in the basement for some time. However, none of these tools were removed from the house because the mysterious illness that had stricken the household before the murders. The family's milk and Andrew and Abby's stomachs removed during the autopsy to perform the Borden dining room. In the Borden dining room were tested for poison. None was found. Okay, I just got a side note, just like the one I was talking about earlier. Why don't they just do the autopsy right in the house? Like, wouldn't you want to take it out of the house? I don't. That's just
and
so
they did
weird.
it on the kitchen table, from what I understand.
Yeah, like the other one, it was done right there in the barn where the body was. I'm like, that's so weird.
Like, y'all, take it the hell outside. Like, come on.
Yeah, can you imagine just being there watching them, like, tear open your parents? Just, I don't know.
Everybody thought it was
gross.
weird that she was like, oh, man, you're acting strange. It's like, yeah. I think anybody would be. If you're not acting strange, I'm worried.
Said Lizzie and Emma's friend, Alice Russell, decided to stay with them the night following the murders while Moore spent the night in the attic guest room. That's really weird. Contrary to later accounts that he slept in the murder site guest room. Police were stationed around the house on the night of August 4th, during which the officer said he had seen Borden enter the cellar with Russell carrying a kerosene lamp and a slop pail. So, ew. He stated that he saw both women exit the cellar, which Borden returned alone, though he was unable to see what she was doing. He stated it appeared she was bent over the sink. So she was just acting weird, but why'd you wait till like late at night to do all this? Like, I don't know. I do understand, again, it does look bad, but I wasn't there either.
But then again, she probably wasn't sleeping either, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's tragedy struck. Your parents had just been slain to death. You don't know what's going on,
I'll put it this way. I've been through a tragedy. I will not specify what that is. But I don't remember pieces of the day, you know what I mean? But I do remember not sleeping the whole night.
Yeah, I've had my
And if I did, I literally passed out from exhaustion. Because I can tell you right now, I did not sleep on my own volition.
Yeah, and I've obviously gone through stuff, and again, will not state either, but I will let you know, I didn't realize I could stay awake for nearly 2.5 days until things happen. So I understand people, if you had a life tragedy, I get it, we understand. So
yeah, just sometimes you just don't know how you're going to be.
You just don't know.
But
there's so much.
I don't want it
brain.
to sound like I'm cutting her some sort of slack or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm not vouching for Lizzie Borden, who probably did these murders. I mean, more likely than not, because there are a couple of suspects, right? But nobody really holds up.
Yeah. So on August 5th, Morse left the house and was mobbed by hundreds of people. Said police had...
Can you imagine? Steps out of the house.
Police had to escort him back to the house on August 6th. Police conducted a more thorough search of the house. So now they waited a couple days later to finally we should probably go back and actually look at more
Yeah,
stuff.
we should probably go back and look at that, the house where that murder thing did happen.
Really bad. And inspecting the sister's clothing and confiscated the broken-handled hatchet head. That evening, the police officer and the mayor visited the Bordens. Lizzie was informed that she was suspected of the murders. The morning, Russell entered the... Yeah. So even the mayor showed up to tell you, like, hey, we think it's you. But they were so nice about it, like, so calm.
Like, oh my God. So here's the thing.
We think you might have done something.
It kind of looks like you did it. I mean, fair warning. Do you think he was telling her that, though, as a means of, like, get the hell out of Dodge, Lizzie? Like, come on.
Yeah, see, I don't know. Because you come from a dad with so much wealth.
Because she wasn't arrested right then either, right?
No, I don't think so. Said the next morning, Russell entered the kitchen to find Borden tearing up a dress. She explained that she was planning to put it in the fire because it was covered in paint. It was never determined if it was a dress she had been wearing the day of the murder. So they weren't paying attention.
See, this to me sounds like a psychotic breakdown, though. If she's not hiding evidence, she's having a mental breakdown.
Yeah, and it was just... I don't know. It did look suspicious. And
obviously. Like, she's burning a dress for no reason. Like I said, but if they can't confirm that was the murder dress, like, what do I call it? But, like, if they can't confirm that's what she was wearing that day, then, like...
Yeah, like, okay, so, like, August 6th, they told her, like, hey, we think you're a suspect. But it wasn't until August 11th she was actually finally served with a warrant.
Yeah, see, that's what I was saying. I was like, wait. Why wouldn't you tell her?
And she could have just up and left. I mean, she really could have.
She had the means.
But the thing is, like, that, I guess, in part of where she looked like she wasn't guilty, because why wouldn't you just run if they kind of pre-told you that you were...
If she didn't think she had anything to worry about, yeah.
Yeah, or... she thought she was really good at hiding it, which she could have. We don't know. But again, she was acquitted, so I can't say much.
But at the same time, if you know they're on your tail, why wouldn't you...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you just go?
But her trial didn't start till June of 1893, though. So it was like... I don't know. It was just really spread out. It took almost a whole year before they were like, okay.
And I personally think that's because they had to build their case. They had to, because
that took some serious building, because it was very gruesome.
And not to mention they had a hurdle in this day. She was a woman.
So, obviously they start going through everything. They start going through the evidence, and they start showing the reason
why I say the reason why I say the woman comment, is that this was not believed to be a crime a woman could commit in this day. That's just the time. That's just the reality of the time that this was. They did not think a woman could pull this off.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know.
Which, oh my God, I can freaking murder somebody hard if I want to, but,
Oh, yeah. And so, they start going through everything. They're talking about the timing of everything, how much time she would have had to have committed the murders, and, like, how they did the autopsies and the skulls, and, like, how they looked at everything afterwards. It's just...
they had to exhume the bodies, didn't they?
Yeah. And then, like, she even fainted in the courtroom.
Sis is dedicated. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, either she's a good actress or she's just straight up like, oh God.
Then again, I would probably faint too. You bring my dead parents' skulls in.
What I thought was kind of crazy is evidence was excluded that Borden had sought to purchase prussic acid and for cleaning sealskin cloak and stuff like so. But she got it from a local druggist the day before the murders. The judge ruled that the incident was too remote at the time to have any connection.
Yeah, but they didn't even sell it to her, so...
Yeah, so, and
the thing is that from what I researched, that was a thing. You could do that with prussic acid, so...
Yeah, and if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically like a colorless...
and the reason why I don't think
that she would... but it's very flammable.
I don't think that she would have poisoned the I don't buy, like, she tried to poison them before and it didn't work, because she also got sick. So, like, why would you
She ate it too, though.
Yeah, why would you poison yourself if that's the case? I mean, like, not knowing if you're gonna live or not if you do that. So,
and I'm sure they thought about that too. Like, why would you consume it as well if you're trying to kill off everyone else? Like, it serves you no purpose.
I mean, that's why I find like the whole prussic acid thing to be very like nonchalant. Of like, yeah, but you could get a lot of shit back then.
Yeah, and so after all this evidence,
wait till we get to H.H. Holmes.
Oh my god. So after all the evidence and everything, and they looked at it, and days of trial, all of a sudden it only took him an hour and a half to figure out that she was going to be acquitted of the murders. And it says upon exiting the courthouse, she told the reporters that she was the happiest woman in the world.
But she probably was. I mean, I would be. I just got off for a murder.
Yeah, and there's and so
I mean, yeah, everybody's gonna raise an eyebrow at that statement, but like literally, you were just in prison for how long?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing.
I'm gonna be known. My nickname is gonna be known as Devil's Advocate on the Stan podcast, just so you know. Like, because I'm always giving the benefit. I'm not giving the benefit of the doubt to these killers. I'm just saying it's. I don't know. Sometimes I have thoughts like when it comes to shit like this that I'm like, okay, but
yeah,
you know why? Because wrongful conviction has me all fucked up.
Because it happens more often than people think.
Yeah, and it's like, no, not on my watch. Damn it.
It says after the trial, the Borden sisters moved into a large modern house on the Hill neighborhood in the Fall River. So this was the neighborhood I was talking about. This is where all the high class people lived. If you had money, you had indoor plumbing, you had electricity, yada yada yada. So these girls took the money and were like, all right, we're gonna live that high life. Like,
why not? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Honestly.
So around this time, Lizzie began using the name Elizabeth, not Elizabeth, but Elizabeth A. Borden. So she new name, new home, new look, all this stuff. Yeah. So at their new house, which Elizabeth dubbed Maplecroft, they had a staff that included live-in maids, a housekeeper, and a coachman. So these girls like took their dad's money and just fucking was
a
like
housekeeper, not Bridget.
They're just like dollar bills, y'all. Like, wait, they were just like living that high life.
Bridget after all this, by the way?
I think they just did away with her. They didn't really talk too much about
Bridget probably went down on her own volition, man.
Honestly, if I were her, I would probably. She probably left after she was on.
After she testified, I would have. Because
she probably would.
Irish
I think she went back to.
Were still like really like messed with in this time.
I think someone helped her, or she went back to Ireland. Probably one of the two.
You know what, Bridget? Good on you, man. Good on you.
Kudos. It says because Abby was ruled to have died before Andrew, her estate went first to Andrew and then at his death passed on to his daughters as part of the estate. So a considerable settlement, however, was paid to settle the claims by Abby's family. It says despite the acquittal, Borden was ostracized by the Fall River Society. So a lot of people just believed she did it, no matter what. People didn't want to hang around. It said her name was again brought into the public eye when she was accused of shoplifting in 1897 in Providence,
which she was known
Island.
To do, by the way. This was not without cause. She was known to be a klepto, so
I think it was probably for the thrill. But in 1905, shortly after an argument over a party that Elizabeth had given for the actress Nance O'Neill, Emma moved out of the house and she never saw her sister again. So she just dipped out. Nance O'Neill, though, she was like a British actress, though she wasn't, So yeah, I mean that's kind of it. And if you don't know the full crime,
yeah, Lizzie Borden also went on to be a pretty big philanthropist. Like she donated a lot of money to a lot of different things. Yeah,
she actually died in 1927.
Yeah, she didn't die that long. Like a lot of people are like, oh, like this happened forever ago, but not really. Not in like the grand scheme of it.
Yeah, she had her gallbladder removed and then she died of pneumonia. But she she remained in Fall River like most of the time, but off and on she lived outside of Fall River, so I think she went back towards her death or something. It says that her death, Borden's worth was $250,000, so that's equivalent to a little over $4 million. She owned a house on the corner of French Street and Belmont Street, several office buildings. I mean, she bought up property like her father did. She got smart. So, she, nowadays, like, back then it wasn't worth as much, but it still was a lot of money, but she had quite the net worth, though. So, the Fulcrum, if you're not too familiar with it, there is a whole Fulcrum. It says, Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw that what she had done, she gave her father 41. Now, there was like another, it says, Andrew Borden now is dead. Lizzie hit him in the head. Up in heaven he will sing. On the gallows she will swing. That's fucked up. People were fucked up back then. A lot of people like Ring Around the Rosie. People don't realize like what that actually has to deal with.
Yeah,
it's
like,
dark.
Shit's dark, man.
Like, but I mean, that was like, you know, kind of not a super in-depth, but an in-depth insight into the Lizzie Borden case and the axe murders. And if you don't know a lot about it, go read about it. It's quite interesting. And like I said, I'll put up some pictures and stuff, but it was just crazy.
Yeah,
and
we're just here to give you we're just here to give you our thoughts about him. But like
little insight.
In closing though, can we just say that
Yes.
axe murders, like, that's some like next level energy you have to have.
Yeah, like a bullet goes faster, man. You gotta swing an axe, and I think that's more personable. But all three of these cases were crazy, and there's so many thoughts and so much more we could talk about. But you know, we're not
rest in
going
peace,
super
the
into time.
victims.
R.I.P.
Even you, Andrew and Andreas. Y'all are mean men in your lives. I'm just saying, like, I don't agree with what happened to either of you, but at the same time, come on, guys, be better.
Yeah, and you know, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We were really excited to do it. Please, if you want, give your thoughts or whatever, or you know, however it is. But we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we can't wait to do the next episode. We're not sure what the next one will be, so you just have to stick around for that. But thank you for stopping by.
Yes.
You know, bye, and have a good day, and hopefully no nightmares. And
I hope you guys all appreciated me screaming about things for almost 2 hours. Have a good time. Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye.